we've set aside a space and called it an art gallery, so therefore there must be a definition of art. Now, when I hear people say, "Oh, anything can be art," it's patently not true, is it? Because if everything is art, we don't need the classification of art. It's just stuff, like everything else. So the fact that we've got an art gallery means someone somewhere has decided this qualifies as art, this does not. And when I go into an art gallery, I want to be moved in a certain way. Did the work take a great deal of skill that I don't possess? Because that will impress me. Did it take a long time to complete? Again, that would impress me. Is it beautiful to look at? Etc., etc. Does it move me? Does it tell a story? They have to tick these various boxes, and then it's art. If they're all ticked, it's a masterpiece. Like Dali's St. John of the Cross, where he decided to paint it from this really unusual angle, from above, and the lighting was so dramatic, and everything about it is a masterpiece. I appreciate that the art world has moved into sort of the conceptual arena, where the idea becomes dominant. So you get the sheet at the side of the work that you have to read and study. That's irrelevant. You shouldn't have to read that. You should just appreciate the work as it is, without any explanation, because that's how it was intended. It finished with Piero Manzoni's cans of artist shit. That was it. That was the best joke you could possibly do with conceptual art. And then I went to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park to have a wander around there, and there were these sculptures where they were kind of legs married with a suitcase or something. And I'm thinking, well, I understand how ideas come about. You take two disparate ideas, put them together, and you've got an original idea. But then you have to kind of disguise it in a way that it becomes interesting, or it's not obvious that that's what you've done. But the problem with the Yorkshire Sculpture Park exhibits was that it was so apparent. Someone had thought, well, what two things don't really go together? A pair of legs, human legs, and a suitcase or a briefcase. I'll put them together, hey presto, there's original art. The criticism I have of the art world today is that it has run out of ideas. It does not know where to go. And part of that problem is that the people who run the art world now are purely commercial people. It's about investment. It's about money. Make the artwork, in inverted commas, an investment, so people will continue to buy it, etc., etc. How do you respond to that, Tony?
Starting, I suppose, the last thing and going backwards, the art world, as far as I'm aware, going back centuries, has always been about patronage. Whether we like it or not, it's always been the people with money that are the arbiters of taste. Whether it is the big collectors nowadays, whether it's the big galleries, going back, whether it's the Beccy's, whether it's the kings, whether it's the princes, queens, royalty, or rich merchants, it's always been about that. So it's no great difference now to say the art world is purely driven by money. It kind of always has. The Sculpture Park exhibition, so that's in Worm. So he's an Austrian sculptor. I did a bit of reading before I came just to find out why he does what he does. I thought sometimes actually researching something and reading about it gives you a way in. It's a bit like trying to enjoy cricket without knowing the rules. If you don't know the rules of cricket, you're watching this game going, I've got no idea what's happening. He always likes the everyday object and how you can treat the everyday object, whether it can be a humorous object, whether you can place it with different ones to have a different context. So basically he's playing with the everyday. I'm not a fan of his work, although I do like the car that's going around a corner that's all kind of warped. It's a very clever piece of workmanship. And looking back at your definition of art, did you go into the gallery and see the car that's slightly warped as if it's going around a corner?
I don't think I did.
It's a really good picture, and it must have taken, it looks like a cartoon of a car, but it's a real car. He's taken a car, refabricated the windows and everything, so it's all on a slight wobble. So that, by your definition of art, it looks great, must have taken an awful long time. There's no way I could do it. So he purely he's a craftsperson in the ability to do that. Why do it? It looks great. So it kind of, and it moved me because it it reminded me of my childhood watching cartoons, and there's someone made my cartoon childhood real life. So that one moved me. The giant pickle outside, I remember, doesn't. But it moved my 70-year-old daughter, who found it very funny because it's slightly phallic. An artist is allowed to make work that you might like or you might not like. We can go to the sculpture park, and it is affordable. Look, the tickets are going up, but it is affordable. But it's only affordable because it's subsidised.
Who is subsidising it?
We are. So we subsidise through our tax, we subsidise the Arts Council. The Arts Council then subsidise the galleries.
Right, so my next point is, who are the arbiters of what is acceptable to be exhibited and what is considered not art? Because you've said it's subsidised by us, that's the general public, so you would think you would get a representative of the general public sitting on the panel going, I like representative art, that's what I want, and that's what I consider to be, this is purely hypothetical, but that could be a thing. And yet I'm not aware, I could be wrong, that there's anybody on these panels who would say, from my uneducated point of view, because I don't want to study all these textbooks about what the artists think, etc., I just want to see stuff that I like.
Most publicly funded bodies have a board of trustees that are the general public that are elected onto that board. So they have the overview of what any gallery will put on. The curators only act on the instructions of the board of trustees.
A lot of people I speak with who are educated, cultured people throw up their arms when it comes to art. They're with me. It's like it's run out of ideas. It's nowhere to go. Because of the advent of photography and now AI, etc., it's like, well, it's pointless having this category of art. It's a legacy from the past, and there's no point in it.
So you don't think that any modern art from, say, the 1890s or 1880s onwards has any value whatsoever?
When I see some abstract paintings where the colour scheme is that exquisite, then it ticks the box of that is aesthetically beautiful. So it still ticks boxes. Now with AI, I remember seeing a sculpture of some black woman who was protesting or something, and this black artist decided to make a sculpture of her, and there was a picture of the sculpture, and I thought, wait a minute, the detail on that is incredible. And it looked like it was just several days after the protest. I thought, how could he produce something so quickly that is so detailed? Anyway, a friend of mine said, oh, it's all laser. She stands in front of some lasers, they scan her, blah, it's all fed into a computer. Then it's spat out as some kind of 3D. There you go. There's your art. And I thought, that's not art. That is mass production. That's making cars or whatever. So this is where it gets really awkward now. What is art and what is not art, Tony?
Okay. Art is created when an individual experiences emotions and wants to transfer that emotion to someone else through some creative medium. That's my definition of art.
I mean, you've been arguing that it's now just a commercial enterprise.
No. The art is generated by an artist wanting to do that. The fact that somebody pays it is another thing entirely. The art market is different from creating art.
But we've got this problem where you're an artist, you have an idea, but it needs funding. You need patronage. So you approach whoever is the patron and say, I've got this idea. And they go, can I sell that? Is that, would that be blah, blah? And that's their consideration. So whatever feelings you had, the emotions that you experienced and you want to convert into this is, mate, my return on investment, say you were Michelangelo, so I want to do this sculpture from marble, it's going to take me 4 years or Da Vinci's Mona Lisa, it's going to take me 20 years to paint that. Not interested, mate, because we want a return investment. So you don't get exhibited. Whereas the artist who says, I've got this, I'm moved by money, Damien Hirst, right? That, by the way, that is, I'm not being sarcastic, he's a very clever he knows exactly what he's doing, but he's motivated by money. So he's like, approaches, but I've got this idea, very easy to put together. I can subcontract all the things. It's a shark in formaldehyde. You just make a fortune. Great, we'll have that. So now you've always got this arbiter of taste, haven't you? That isn't really anything to do with the public. It's just foisted on the public, and we're told it's art, whereas in fact it isn't. It's a commercial. It's capitalism doing its thing. That's what it. So when you go to an art gallery, it's capitalism, and we've already agreed that the patronage of the arts was kind of based on, but at least the artist then had a license to go, I can make this beautiful. I want, my career, so I want to impress people with XXX. Whereas now it's a case of let's turn it over as fast as we can. And in fact, let's use the technology that we have, the AI, the scans, and there it is. I mean, I can always imagine a stage where you don't even have the artist, it's just AI. You tell AI, come up with art. There you go.
So, the same thing is like, I'm just noticing there's guitars in the corner there, so you write songs. Why do you bother if it's all run by business? And the music industry is a capitalist industry.
Yes.
Why do you write songs?
Because I get pleasure from it.
That's it. Because when you mentioned at the start of that sentence, you talked about me. I create art and I only do it because I need to find someone to buy it. It's never happened. I've never had an idea and had to sell it. I've had an idea and done it. So the world we're talking about, the one that gets you very angry, shouldn't affect us. It should not stop us from making art just because capitalists rule the roost. That should not stop us from creating art. That should not stop us from having original thoughts. We must not let ourselves be beaten into submission by capitalism. So I want you to continue to make music regardless of whether anybody will hear it, because that's not why you do it. That's not why I make art. People may never see it. I don't do it for people to see it. Occasionally, as you see, I do have exhibitions because I quite like people going, oh, what are you up to, Tony? I've been up to this. And they come and have a look, and some people like it, some people don't. But I've made no money out of any exhibition I've ever done. I've sold one piece, and that's only because someone said, please, can I buy a piece? So I don't do it for money. And art shouldn't be about money. And just because we know it's part of a system that's ruled by it, should not stop us from making art.
Do you know, I think that is an incredibly important point you've made. If we could separate art from capitalism, you start getting into the politics of universal basic income, so that people who are creative just think, I want to make these things, then that would revolutionise the whole thing. Because when I write a song, it's just I get a vibe from it. I know very few people are going to hear it. And I'm never going to make a great deal of money from it, or any money at all, probably. But, when I get into a groove with it, it's like, well, I enjoy that. But I spoke to a friend of mine, a late friend of mine, who's a photographer. He often asked me if you knew that no one was going to hear or see what you created, would you continue to create it? And I said, probably. And he said, I wouldn't. The whole point of photographing things is to share. That was
Yeah, luckily, whether we like it or not, technology allows us to do it. Going back to just the music, 30 years ago, if you wanted to record a song, you'd have to book a studio. Technology has allowed you to go, I've got a drummer here, I've got all the things here, I can do it. We have social media. You can release it that day and can be seen by hundreds and hundreds of people without any money changing hands. So I like this technology. I like the fact that I could get an iPad, do a drawing, press send, it appears on Facebook, and people go, I like that, or I don't like that. And it completely bypasses this artistic world that I think we both struggle with, but we're aware that it exists. Now, if in an ideal world, if a record label came to you, said, really like your songs, really want to put a record out, like to give you some money, would you be part of that system?
If someone was to approach me now with that offer, I'd say, let me see the contract.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let me see the terms and conditions, because that's where all the action is. Most musicians are very young, very naive, just are so excited that someone likes their music, sign anything. And then there's years of litigation, regret, blah, blah. I've heard the stories. Just going back, Tony, to what you said about you put it on social media. I mean, already it's like, well, social media is owned by capitalism.
True.
So you think it's just open to everyone, but no, there's an algorithm that decides we'll show that or we won't. So you've still got the issue of there's an arbiter somewhere else deciding. So the only way you can actually get round it is to put up your own exhibition, incidental, which is why I'm putting the happening on in Wakefield at the Red Shed. Just do it yourself. Invite like-minded people and share the ideas that you've come up with. And then you get a genuine, authentic response from people. And I think actually that ultimately what I'm really angry about is the lack of emotion when I go to an art gallery. There's nothing there for me. There's nothing to move me. We were discussing earlier about the cancel culture. If anybody does have anything interesting to say, or controversial it's usually labelled, then it's like, not sure no, we'd best not do that. We're a public funded body. We're not allowed to have that kind of idea. So immediately, where's the interesting stuff? Where are the challenging arguments? The ideas of, how should we live? Where are the new ideas? There aren't any. And when we look at society and the way it's going, the globalization, the hierarchical, patriarchal, right wing now, everything's going the same way. There's no alternative. It's not like, well, I'll go and live in such and such a place because it's completely different culture there. You can't do it. And we're getting fewer ideas. And traditionally, art used to be the area where people would express revolutionary ideas. So, during the First World War, you got the Dadaists, and as a reaction to the madness that was going on. Whereas now, where are they? Where are the artists and the poets who were? I mean, I'm going to touch on the Gaza thing, right? Because it's current, it's topical. Even mentioning it, there was like this: should I mention Gaza? Because immediately it's become politicised. Through, I mean, everything is political, but it's become weaponized. Sorry, it's become weaponized that you can't even discuss it. So, but I have seen some artworks where some cartoonists or whatever have created cartoons. I thought that is powerful. That is a powerful piece of artwork. But that aside, there doesn't seem to be any. There's no artist going, is this how we really want to live? Is this?
So why are you putting on the happening? You're putting on an event.
And exactly,
why do it?
It's exactly the same thing as why I still play guitar. This analog piece of equipment. I thought, let's put a happening on so I could try out these wacky ideas that I've got that in a way criticise the existing paradigm model of the art world. So when people come to the happening, the whole idea is to challenge the expected way that an audience is supposed to behave with performers. Typically, you get a compare, they announce, blah, blah, performance, they end, applause, blah, and next one. It's like, yeah, we've seen that, we've done that. So at the happening, there is no compare. Things just happen. And there's no expectation of the audience. Whether they want to applause or get involved or comment, there's no role for them. They can do what they like at the happening. So that's what excites me about the idea.
I'm looking forward to coming to it. But happenings like that have been happening for decades. There was the 60s, 50s. A lot of them wouldn't happen. Yours is happening inside a venue. You picked a venue, whereas you could have done it in the streets, you could have done it in the middle of the roundabouts, you could have done it on a boat floating down the river there. So you've already gone into some kind of conventions. There's an audience coming. You've invited an audience. You've already started marketing it. You kind of created something, and you've had to rely on the norms of performance inside a venue with an audience, with the posters and stuff like that. So the question is, why? If it's a reaction against that, why are you using all those tropes to deliver it?
You have to work within the system that exists.
Right.
So, like you mentioned on social media, it's like, because that's all there is. To be fair, the best response we've had is when we've spoken to people personally, people like yourself that we know, who go, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." I say, "Yeah, that'll come like that." So I don't really have much hope of the advertising of it, because the red shed can only hold so many people. But if people attend it that we know and it fires their imagination and then they talk about it, then okay, let's get more ambitious. Let's do another one. Let's do it during the summer in the wherever, change the venue, or is there a venue, etc., etc. So then we can work that way. So you have to start from somewhere. And so you have to work with what you've got. And these tools are available, social media, the recording, the video. So it's like, okay, we'll use that. But ultimately, it's about reconnecting with humanity. This is just technology. And in fact, it's a barrier between people, which is how capitalism thrives. It wants isolated people to be unhappy so that they buy stuff that they don't need. So all these tools that we say we enjoy using, it's still a barrier. If we were sat around a campfire telling stories, that would be the best experience. Because there's thousands of years of history of that. So it's about reconnecting with what is human, the human emotions.
So my response is that I think all that still exists because you're doing it. There's thousands, millions of artists doing just that because they enjoy it. It means something to them. Well, I think what we're agreeing is it's this money making world that has always been there. Whenever you see somebody being creative, someone else will go, "I can make money out of that." It's exploitation is what we're talking about. But I wouldn't say that all art is dead and all art is unnecessary, because you're doing it and I'm doing it, and lots of people I know and care about are doing it. I don't think it's run out of ideas, otherwise you wouldn't be doing the happening. I think the art world is quite narrow-minded, but that's because they need to ship it and sell it to somewhere else. That's their business, it's not mine. Would I want to be part of it? I have no idea. It's never going to happen, so I don't really lose any sleep over it. I think you just get up and make art, and that's okay. So I think that's kind of my response to all that, is I think the art in all its many forms is incredibly exciting, always will be, because human beings are incredibly exciting and always will be, and be challenging and be difficult. And same with the nature of the world we live in. It's always going to be challenging, it's always going to be difficult. Our responses will always change. So technologies, AI actually has freed up, I think, the artists. I feel sorry for illustrators who have got that level of skill, who spent years perfecting how to illustrate, and now they've found that their jobs are being overtaken by anybody who can type the right sequence of numbers and words into a computer. I do feel sorry for them. But actually it feeds up the artist not to worry too much about that, the detail of stuff. AI will never be able to generate the ideas.
The advent of AI might actually be the catalyst that starts the revolution about getting people to think, well, hang on, it's a completely new landscape now then. We can do what the hell we like. How do we want to live? By the way, a disclaimer, I have applied for a cultural grant to fund that happening. Good. I don't know whether I'm getting it, but the tool is there, so I thought, well, I'll try and access it, but even though I'm going to bite the hand that feeds me if they decide to give me one.
But it's your hand, because culture grants are funded by your money, so it's your money. You are the arbiter of taste. You said, I want to do this with my money. And there's a big panel that there's not enough money to fund everything, so not everybody will get funded. Sadly, we live in that kind of world. But a lot of them will. And so that's exciting. So you are the person that decides where the money gets spent, because you said, I want public funding to go on this, which is what I'm doing.
Right. So
that's good. So good luck with that. Hopefully, I hope they will, because I think it's a lovely idea. And so that's kind of a heartwarming thing, isn't it? You can have these ideas. You can go to a public funded body and say, fund my art.
I think that's such a great note to finish on, Tony, because it's optimistic and it's so sorely lacking in the world. I want to thank you for your time, Tony, for coming along and debating art with me. Good luck with your future projects, and hopefully we can work together at happening, perhaps.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much, and I'll be there at the very first happening.
Great.